this short series of videos is about KubeCon. But before we go to the first interview, because this series is about really interviews from KubeCon, I will tell you a little bit about the conference itself, but main part, and I hope you are waiting for this, is about the interviews with people who were there. Before we start, a short disclaimer. I was with Spacelift at KubeCon. Right now I'm not with them anymore. What you can hear in some interviews is related to Spacelift, but for obvious reasons it's no longer relevant in most cases. But to keep the flow of discussion, keep the flow of the interview, keep the reasoning as it was during our discussion with those great folks which I interviewed, I will keeping this as it was. Right, so disclaimer is over, now it's time to have the first interview. The first interview is with Lars Larsson, the field CTO at Elastisys. We spoke about community, we spoke about Elastisys, of course. We spoke about a couple of things related to everything what is around us. So, enjoy! Hello, so we are here with Lars from Elastisys. Thank you for your time and taking time talking with me about KubeCon, about Elastisys and things like that.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to start with KubeCon itself. So it's second day already, so half of it is behind us.
Yes.
Luckily.
Considering the noise level.
Oh yes.
Yes, it's very luckily that it's almost half over.
Yes. So how do you feel about KubeCon so far?
I think it's very interesting, but I also feel like there are many big trends that you can pick up on now. So, I mean, of course, I have a bias. I mean, I look a lot for the security things.
Yeah.
I've talked to other people that have the same sort of interest as well. And apparently, according to them at least, there's more of a security focus here in EU than there is in the US.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and also that the EU KubeCons are bigger, apparently.
Yes.
So, I don't know, I heard some number about Chicago having 8,000 attendees. Here it's 12 or 13 or whatever. Yeah. So it's definitely huge. They said this is the biggest ever. So that I think is pretty cool.
Yes, I could feel it yesterday.
I bet you must have talked to a lot of people.
Oh yeah, that's the fun here, really, to talk with people, right?
Oh yeah. Definitely. No, definitely. Hey, that's why you have a podcast, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. No, but I also see that people are, compared to a few years ago, it seems like people are less talking about DevOps as in developers will do all operations. Mm-hmm. And it's turning more into developers should be able to do operations of their own application. But there's also a lot of talk about platform teams.
Yeah.
So it feels to me like that is something that the community is starting to understand a bit more. Mm-hmm. That perhaps it was a bit over-enthusiastic to make all developers also be essentially system admins.
Yes, that's true. Because if you want to be system admin, you'll be sysadmin, right? Not the developer, right? That's the thing. And that's quite an interesting point of view, because I can agree that we have this shift left, everything shift left, not only security, but now we started to see that the cognitive load with this is so huge that no one really can bear it.
No, exactly, and I think that's why we see more platform engineering. So that's turning into, I don't know, system admin role 2.0, 3.0. I don't know what generation we're supposed to call this, but there's also this huge push for AI. I mean, you heard it in the keynotes yesterday. You can see it on basically at least 80% of all the companies that have a booth here at KubeCon. They're talking a whole lot about how AI is part of their solution. But I think that here you have a very clear divide, because the experts in AI will probably not also be as close to the DevOps role. Yeah. So then definitely you have, like, here's the domain expert in AI, like here you have the data scientist. They want to work with algorithms, they want to work with data. They definitely don't want to work with the system admin part of platform engineering. Yes. So maybe we have a more clear separation there, and maybe that's also one of the reasons why we see more platform engineering being covered. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point, because what we had before, we had the silos, right? And we started to make this like one SAC with everything, and now we started to see that this SAC should have some places, different places where different things are located, right? So it's not like silo again, but it's more dedicated. So understanding of everything around, yes, but understanding only we are here and we work with you and you and you, but we are separated in somehow. And I think that's personally having like 25 years of experience, I think that's a good thing, because there was too much on one shoulders. By the way, how do you see the AI? Is this more like a buzzword and hype now? Because as you said, everyone is an AI first company right now, right?
We are definitely at the part where a lot of companies will say a whole bunch of stuff about AI, and it's like the thing that it's a big promise.
Yes.
I'm not sure that the future will be as I'm not sure that what the picture that is being painted right now is what will happen in the future.
Yeah,
let's just say. So I'm not sure about that. It's going to have an effect. In many ways, I mean, AI is based on like really good work in statistics.
Yes.
So I mean, the fact that we talked about like big data before, basically we, as the sort of infrastructure field, I mean, I'm more of an infrastructure platform kind of person to begin with, right? I mean, that's what we were building to support before, to like, here, how can we collect all that data? I mean, that's what sort of Kubernetes, what this field was all about a few years ago. Like, how do you even get all that data? How do you store it? How do you process it? But people didn't really know exactly what to do with it. Now we have more mature systems around that, so now we understand a bit better perhaps how to work with it. I'm sure that we will see great products coming out in the future, and I'm sure that we will also see like more interesting things coming out of AI, but all this stuff where it's like, okay, we have a problem, but let's put AI to solve it for us. I'm not so sure everything is going to be like self-driving, whatever. I mean, ultimately, and that's especially me as a security person, the security, compliance, I mean, governance, the fact that you can have a system that generates like, all your infra's code or whatever. I mean, that's great. It's a great help, but ultimately you are the one responsible for it.
Yes.
You have to understand what it does, what security implications it has. I mean, it's not just the writing of it, the sort of getting it down, essentially the typing of it. That was never really the hard part necessarily. I mean, it might have been the tedious and time-consuming part, and I love that we're using computers to take away the tedious and time-consuming. But the stuff that actually requires the expert knowledge, and where ultimately somebody is going to point to you and say, you committed this to the Git repo, sort of, why?
Yes.
Hopefully you understand why you did it, rather than just go, well, the computer told me to. Because that's not going to fly.
Exactly. And I remember, this is a good case, I remember once I asked AI to generate a Lambda function in AWS for some authorization.
Sure.
The prompt was quite long, but then I added one word really, or one sentence about security.
Yeah.
And the code was completely different.
Oh.
So
Okay.
this is something what we need to remember when we use this. And also I think, I wonder if very soon we will have something like happen with Scrum, that everyone had Scrum bot. So I wonder if we will have AI bot.
Probably.
So, okay, then, so KubeCon is also very heavily related to the community, right? And how do you find the community today around the CNCF, around open source and things like that?
I might be a bit biased because I was here also for the pre-day, so the day with the stuff with the surrounding sessions, not just KubeCon but the co-hosted events as well. And I listened in on the startup track, talking a lot about like licenses and like how do you do open core, what's a business license, stuff like that. So it's like source available but not necessarily entirely open and stuff like that. So maybe I listened in on a bit too much of that, and that like has tainted me a bit. But it is something that I feel when you walk around here as well, that before, when money was essentially free to borrow and to get, like, investment was rather easy, it felt like the community was perhaps a bit more open about all kinds of stuff, like giving more away. Now it seems like the venture capitalists, they want to make sure that they get a return on investment. I mean, you have companies like HashiCorp that switched from being entirely open to being more like source available, and you can see what that did to the community. I mean, the community reacted strongly against it, forking off, making open tofu, making the open bow or whatever. So, I mean, you can see that there is a bit less of like, oh, everybody's friendly, everybody's sharing, and a bit more of like, okay, but how do I get paid? And I feel like you can see that a bit as well. And also with the AI companies that we have now, it seems like they are doing the open core-ish thing directly from the start, where they will give you relatively smart model away. So that's going to be Apache licensed or whatever. But then the really smart model, the one that they spent a whole lot of money training and the one that has so much greater promise, that you can only get as a software as a service, or you have to pay to license it. So I think that there is a bit of that shift going on right now. Maybe that's something that will pass, because I mean, if you go back in history to see how open source started, it wasn't like there always been business interest. There's always been like, somebody has always wanted to make some kind of money, but open source still came out of that and became the thing that at least a few years ago it was. Maybe we're just having a slight downturn now, where it's a bit more corporate, and maybe it's going to be more open in the future. I hope so, at least. Yeah,
I think that the things will settle down, and we will find another way of cooperating between business and earning money, what is important, because we want to eat, I think.
Sure.
And this, let's say, more hobbyist approach with open source and contributing to open source. And how Elastisys is find themselves like in this whole picture here in KubeCon, in this
That's an excellent question. Maybe I should just quickly say what Elastisys does, right?
Right.
Maybe not everybody knows. So, okay, we make a Kubernetes distribution made entirely out of open source. We also have like an architectural decision record, by the way. All of that stuff is also open.
That's cool.
Yeah, where we prefer,
you should read it.
right, where we prefer community-driven open source, because we don't really want to be in the position where one company can decide, oh, we're switching the license and that's going to affect us far too much. We don't want that. So we make an open source Kubernetes distribution, and it's made for high security purposes. So basically, if you're dealing with sensitive data, which essentially everybody is, especially
Yes.
here in Europe with the NIS2 directive coming later this fall.
Yes.
So many businesses will fall under being, well, either like an essential entity or like, I can't remember the English word, but I mean, you deal with sensitive data, right?
Yeah.
Personal information, etc. So, security focused. We give that away. It's open, it's on GitHub. And we manage that fully as a service on top of various cloud providers. So that's what we do. So that's how we then make money. So we bring our expertise. So the ones and zeros, the code, all that stuff, the migration from one version to the next, we give that away because we see that as good for business continuity for our customers. They want to know that, okay, here's what it is, this is what's exactly in there, and it's all open. That's nice. But then, you know, maybe you don't want to have your own internal platform team. Maybe you would like for somebody else to manage the whole platform. Because I think it was Kelsey Hightower that already in like 2017 wrote something like that Kubernetes is not like a platform in itself, but it's a great platform for building a platform.
Yes.
And that's very true, because I mean, Kubernetes is the thing that runs containers across a bunch of virtual machines. But then you need a logging system, monitoring, somewhere to push your containers, vulnerability scanning, intrusion detection if you're doing security stuff. I mean, and we have all that. And like a database, we put all that stuff into one distribution, and that's what you can get. Either just open or managed by us, or supported by us.
Right.
So in a sense, it's kind of a bit more like what Red Hat started out doing. Red Hat being the original like open source success story, you know?
Yes.
Where they gave away the software, but they charged for support.
Yes. Yes.
So, I don't know, maybe, so I think that model makes sense, because then basically you're paying for the expertise,
Yes.
not for the ones and zeros that cost nothing to reproduce.
Yeah, I like this idea because, you know, the platform itself is not just the tool, it's also the knowledge, also the management and continuous improvement and continuous use. Well, I just coined a new term, I think.
Continuous use.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit different than just using the tool, because everyone can just grab a hammer and just start hitting the walls, but you need to know what nail you should use and how to hit this nail to do it properly. So it's quite good to see this kind of approach, because we can say tools are cheap, right?
Yeah.
But the knowledge is something what we gain with years of experience, with years of changing pictures and landscape and learning how to fix and overcome some strange issues. And this is something what you cannot just have as a tool, even with AI.
No, exactly. And I mean, that's also the reason why you're paying for a senior engineer. I mean, you want somebody that has done all these things before, that knows how to react, what to do, what is a good choice, what are the trade-offs. So that's what you're actually paying for when you hire somebody more experienced.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And I mean, you've been doing this for how long did you say?
25 years.
25 years.
26 this year.
Yes. Nice. Yeah, so that's a quarter of a century worth of experience.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So obviously that's something that is worth a whole lot. There has to be a difference between hiring you to deal with stuff rather than hiring somebody that is just starting out. There has to be. And
it's not the speed, only the speed.
No, exactly.
Even juniors can be faster than me.
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, it's like that meme that was popular. I mean, basically, something like, you're not paying me for the half hour it took me to do the job, you're paying me for the 20 years of experience that let me do it in half an hour or whatever.
Exactly.
So that's basically it.
Yes, exactly. So we had in Poland some kind of joke, and this joke is concluded by, I hit the hammer, $1. I knew where, $100.
Yeah, exactly.
This is it, exactly, right?
It is. And I mean, and that's also the reason why we are offering what we do, right?
Exactly.
I mean, we want to be essentially fill the function of a platform team, because not everybody should make their own Kubernetes platform. I mean,
Yes,
we're talking so much about
definitely.
reducing cloud costs, right? And then everybody wants to talk about how do you run fewer virtual machines, or how do you send less data over the network, or whatever. I mean, how do you store less? I mean, we're talking about that part a lot.
Yeah.
But we're not really talking about how you should make more efficient use of the human resources that you have. I mean, the developers. So tying it back to like the platform engineering to the developer side with the DevOps, what does that actually mean in 2024?
Yeah.
I mean, we have great tools these days that let developers operate a piece of software as long as the platform works. Now the question is, should every company invest in their own internal platform engineering team, or should they get that from somewhere else?
Exactly. And looking on the still, even if we have a kind of crisis, looking on the still, like how short we are with this knowledge on the market, and good knowledge on the market, probably they should turn to the proper companies and ask for help here.
Exactly.
You mentioned this topic, and I had immediate answer or idea. Like we talk about DevOps, and there is a framework behind DevOps called CALMS, right? And the tools are only part of this abbreviation. We have culture, we have lean, we have measurements, we have sharing, and we have automation. There is only one letter in 5 of them.
Yeah.
So this brings the perspective, I think. So to understand this, it's not just banging into keyboard, because this can be done by monkey. Right?
Yeah. That's never been the interesting part.
Yes, exactly. That's why we are where we are. So, what is the next big thing coming in Elastisys? How do you think? What will be the next step for you in the nearest future?
Newest feature?
Yes.
We are launching support for Microsoft Azure as well. So that's the biggest thing that we have. So that's going to be very interesting.
Cool.
Because we have been very much, I mean, we have customers with all kinds of security requirements. So some want our platform air-gapped, we can do that. Some want to run it on-premise in their own data centers, we can help them do that. Some want it on various public but more like niche clouds, like maybe ones that just cover one European country, or maybe ones that just are in, here in Europe, for instance. But now we're also going to come out and support people that want to use Azure.
Perfect.
So that's really nice.
Perfect. What I learned about Azure is that only the biggest difference between using AWS, I'm an AWS guy, and Azure is that you need to have very, very wide monitor, because you are clicking and going forward, right? So that's why wide screens came out to the picture.
I thought that was for Java class names.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so for those 1 or 2 folks who are watching this, how to start with Elastisys? What do you need to do in order to learn more about the platform?
Well, you can go to the open source documentation at elastisys.io. That's going to take you to the documentation. You can see everything that's in the platform. You can familiarize yourself with that. All the code is on GitHub, so you can find that as well. It's easy to follow and find it there. If you want us to manage it for you, or you want our support, then that's the commercial part. Then you go to elastisys.com instead.
Okay.
So the code at IO, all the tech stuff at IO, and the commercial stuff at .com. So come to us at .com if you want to get started with our managed service or support.
Perfect. So if you are looking for a solution like this, here is your guy to contact with.
All right.
Thank you very much, Lars, and thank you for your time.
you.
And it was a really interesting discussion, and I hope we will
repeat it someday.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
definitely. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that was the first interview with Lars. I hope you enjoyed this. In the next one, you will see who will be my guest. But I will explain a little bit what KubeCon is. See you there.